Greetings. Welcome to Kadika the Peer Review Science channel. This is Netcher Neb. So, we have excellent news. My research was accepted. Uh, or not my research was accepted, but my historical research proposal was accepted. It was accepted for the History 491 Senior Capstone Seminar. As everyone know, entering uh, the master's program very soon. So I am at the end of my Bachelor of Science program in history at Liberty University. Um, I will be taking uh, my next major will as a graduate in a graduate program. I will be taking interdisciplinary research, which I will have a degree in linguistics and history. So it's a combined. My next degree is a combined degree. It's a specialized chosen degree. The two fields I chose for an interdisciplinary research degree, master's, due to my career and what I'm trying to accomplish uh, within the next 5 or 10 years if I'm still here. Um, so the what is a senior capstone for those who are entering college? For those who are just getting out your associate's program, or just receive your associate's degree. A capstone is when um let me break this down. So a senior capstone is the final major project or seminar in a history degree that brings together everything one has learned or what was showed, and it shows that you can do real historical research. Um, and in this, it usually involves like choosing a historical question, uh, in using historical methodology like observing or using primary and secondary sources, and also writing an original research paper or completing a substantial project. So in my case, for me to get my uh, Bachelor of Science in History, I will have to submit a research proposal, which I did. So when I submitted my research proposal to my professor accepted my research proposal. My research proposal was based on four different regions of Africa. But the initial argument that I'm presenting in my research proposal is whether Africans describe themselves as black before colonial interactions, and did we have a concept and did we categorize based off of or classify based off of color. And as I seen in my research and what I'm proposing in the primary materials that I'm evaluating, is that yes, we have for thousands of years. I'm using kind of like a multidisciplinary approach because I'm trained in advanced linguistics in college, and also I'm trained in historical methodology as well as Egyptology from or Egyptological grammar applications from a specialized private training that I did in my life through Dr. Riketti Amin or Sabat Dr. Riketti Amin or Sabat Riketti Amin. Um, Also, the history 499, the history 491 is also includes a proposal first. So I will had, I already went through the proposal. As I done my proposal, I showed my sources that I'm going to be using in the research proposal. And I have 10 to 12 pages, so it's like a 10 to 12 to 15 page research that I'm doing. And the name of my research is Black Before Colonial Racial Theory, a historical analysis of Black and pre-colonial African primary sources and languages. This research is important to a lot of us here, and it's important for the simple fact that the research is the evidence that I found in the primary materials and secondary sources is that research has been ignored, right? So a lot of us are observing scholars conducting like a wig interpretive history in which they are ignoring data, etc. So I'm gonna go over just a little bit of the primary materials I'm gonna be using in my research proposal, my college research proposal for the Bachelor of Science program. Of course, you already know in the Bachelor of Science program in history, we are taught historical methodology. We are taught historiography methodologies. We are trained in various we are trained in multiple disciplines to enhance our historical research capabilities, and we are learning in depth what is the historian's craft and what the historian's craft is about, and mainly the historical. Despite your worldview, you can have you know any worldview you can have. It doesn't matter to me, but from our worldview, which is separate to the methodologies that we are using to conduct our research, it's quite important, and everybody have to know this, right? So mainly, this is what my research is going to be about. So it's a misnomer or some type of inaccurate information or misinformation, or it's wig interpretive. It's just historians and scholars are just ignoring. So since they're ignoring this evidence, I decided to bring this evidence to academia, and this is why my research proposal got accepted. It got accepted with 100%. And my professor gave her statement. She's very knowledgeable in a historian's craft. She do also great work, and I'm excited. I was like afraid at first, but I was like, I'm confident because, I'm doing the historical craft, the historian's craft, which is to evaluate various sources, not just primary, secondary, but mainly, what I'm building in my research is mainly primary materials. Historians pay close attention to primary materials. That's one of the most important qualitative sources we use, the primaries. And from the primaries, secondary sources is also important as well, or the scholar's interpretation of the primary, other scholars' interpretation of the primary sources. All right. So, and in this research, basically, I imagine good historians actually, imagine that work first in their mind. As a historian, you got to have a excellent imagination for you to put together and reconstruct the past properly and also unbiasedly. So as I put together this research in my head, and I said, how can I be creative? How can I make this different? And how can I uh, attack certain arguments and make it controversial? Because historians are also revisionists. Uh, Whatever the primary materials are stating, and whatever the historian is uncovering from those primary materials, it potentially can change the way we see or the way we see history today. It always can change. It's subject to change, and so historians are revisionists in a way where we are changing the way we view history. And this is another case where it is falsely assumed that blacks did not call themselves black. Uh, it's also falsely assumed that, um, you know, in speaking of race, that Europeans invented racism. Yes, that's true. They invented a modern sense, the way they socially constructed what race is to them, or colonial Europeans. So also before contact, in pre-colonial times, and before we begin to interact with Europeans within the 15th century, uh, in the case of the Portuguese, as primary materials from 1444, uh, that shows the Portuguese interacting with Africans, and they describing Africans as black or negros. So they are not using the word black. They're actually using negros, and negros translates to black. So, but when we look at uh, African primary materials that's pre-colonial, and we see Africans only describing themselves as black, and also they are describing other Africans as black. Now, certain Africans are not potentially described as black. In any case, the primary materials only indicate a certain type of African were described as black. Other types were described with various other colors, like red, yellow, and pink. And this is like the opposite spectrum of black. And not only these other colors, which is important to know as well, but these were like proto classifications. Africans would then classify themselves along the lines of color, and they will classify others along the lines of colors in the materials that I have uncovered for this research. And it's kind of interesting when we think about it, because we think that modern racial classification was only built uh, with the interactions of Africans and the Portuguese, and other colonial Europeans, when the colonial fathers of America then would come here and then would make black part of their law and etc., and demonize it, and put blacks to statuses of slaves, etc. But before then, black was still used, by Africans to classify themselves, and also they classify others by other colors, and which is interesting to note. So some of the evidence I show, for example, are from various regions of Africa, and this is why my professor was like, "Wow, this is magnificent. This is terrific research." Because I don't just stick with one portion. I go from the oldest primary materials. As a historian, of course, y'all know that we pay close attention to primary materials. We use primary materials. We observe and examine artifacts, which is considered primary materials, inscriptions, which is considered primary materials, even depictions of the African populations themselves. So in one ancient inscription, this is the Pepy Ankh, which is in the Nile Valley. This is like northern Africa, the northern region of Africa, and within this region, we see Africans depicting and describing themselves as black. And as you see here, it's not speaking about as if he is actually the color of black as we see fit. They will have their own spectrum of color according to primary materials, and we shouldn't put our own spectrum of color that we have today on an ancient population and how they view things. So as we see here, the black by this picture by Bruce Allardyce, if I'm pronouncing their name right. And you see uh, on the lower right, you see something that is black, and you see that his complexion to us uh, is also black, right? To us, moderns. But in the primary materials of Pepy Ankh would then describe himself as the black person, the black one, or the black person, or the black man. Either one is synonymous to each other in its translation range. So, in primary materials, this man right here, as you see, heavy pragmatism in his characteristics, physical characteristics, and facial features. We see lower, like coarsely hair type, which is mainly a continuity within throughout the Sahel area and throughout other areas of Africa. And as you see this, you see that man, he describes himself as the black person or the black one. Right now, notice what's also important is zero evidence. Zero evidence is important because only Nubians and Egyptians in this specific African area are described as black. No other group. Asians are not described as Amukim. They're not described as that. Only blacks and Nubians, well, Nubians, so-called Nubians, which is anachronistic, but let's use the term Nubian so people can understand here. So the Nahisi groups or Nubians are also called black, and also Egyptians are also called black or Kim. They are describing only the Nubians in themselves with this descriptive color, and they are not attributing it to Asians. And another thing that's interesting is that not only that they're describing themselves as black, but they are saying that the Nubians and Egyptians are derived from a black god, whereas the Amu and Asians, or the Asians and North Africans, for some reason, they are saying they are derived from another type of god. So they are classifying. This is like some form of proto classification that they are constructing on their own. So race is a social construct that varies from culture to culture, right? So they are beginning. This is seems to me like a beginning stages of some type of classification based off of skin color and metaphysics of some type of deity or ancestor or black ancestor, etc. So this guy right here, Pepy Ankh, I'm using, which just dates back to old Egyptian. In the area Pacific is North Africa. This is another inscription of a individual in an old kingdom who is describing himself as dark skinned or black. This is another man. His name is Nikauisesi Kim, and this is also in the sixth dynasty. And you see Nikauisesi Kim, his skin is not jet black as we may think in modern terms, but it is used exactly in how modern blacks today use the term black. Like me, I say I'm black, but yet my skin color is lighter actually than the Nile Valley Egyptians themselves. Nile Valley Egyptians are way darker than me and than my skin color, but yet I still call myself black. So to the eyes of the primary the population who is evaluating, well, in the eyes of the historian who is evaluating primary materials, when we are finding this evidence, we have to record it and document our research, and that's what I have done academically. So as we see here, you see dark-skinned Nile Valley Africans. In this specific Nile Valley African, just as Pepy Ankh, the black man, or Pepy Ankh, the black one, described himself as black, so did Nikauisesi, who described himself as also black. Again, notice only Nubians and Egyptians are described as Kim in the adjective modifier form. No other ethnic group, population are described with determinations of the adjective modifier Kim. Only Egyptians and Nubians, which is also magnificent research, well, magnificent primary materials. So in this, I also use this in my research proposal. And this is the Ezana Stone. It's written in various different languages, but the original languages is written in, which is Gaiese. Now, what's interesting about this is that being that I have advanced linguistic training, some historians are not skilled at linguistics, so or Egyptological, and don't know how to read the hieroglyphs, etc. So I'm kind of blessed in that area where I took advanced basics and advanced linguistic training, and I'm going for a linguistic degree next, um, well, in a few months, etc., in a master's program. So linguistics is go hand in hand with history. If I can't find the data in primary materials as an interdisciplinary historian and interdisciplinary linguistic specialist, what I would do is I will go into other methodologies to see if I can pull data to reconstruct the past, and pull data so we can know what was going on in the past itself. So as we see here, this is Ezana. This dates back, I think, to the 4th century. So this is a 4th century stone tablet that was found in Ethiopia, where two groups of populations was going to war with each other. And another African observed that a group that he labeled as black, which he himself is an African, calling someone black, and this dates back to the 4th century, before the 15th century, before racial classifications was even created by colonial Europeans. Blacks, again, calling other blacks black. In red, red is also some type of classification. But what's interesting is in the Nile Valley, red also can mean black. It can also mean Kemp. They are using it similar to how Black Americans use red and black. For example, a red person still is a black person. We just say red to distinguish a lighter color black from a darker color black. So they are using these terms, interestingly, similar, quite similar, before pre-colonial times as blacks today are using these terms. So within this inscription, which was interesting, so I had to do a twofold type of methodology approach here. For one, you have two different arguments from two different scholars. One scholar who is an Ethiopic and Egyptologist, who can read the inscriptions of Ethiopic, read this text and translated this text and said that, from his experience, that he thinks that the black and red is being associated to, of course, the skin color of the populations, and that the red is being associated with kind of the Semitic groups or the Semitic people. And then you have another scholar who argues that is not talking about skin color, but just an axiomic expression. So what I did was, what neither of those two historians did in the past, and me as a historical linguist, our only thing I did was looked up the etymological sense, or the etymological history uh, of the terms being translated. For one, Tessalum or Teslam or Salim, Teslam, within Gaiese means black. It means dark color, right? In that sense, I looked up the Afro-Asiatic branch called the Ethio-Semitic branch, right? So let's see if I can get that right, clear here. Right. Okay. So, um, it's the Ethiopian Semitic or Ethio-Semitic branch, or the Abyssinian branch. Is a family of languages spoken in Ethiopia, Eritrea, and the Sudan. and they form a branch of the South Semitic languages, which is itself a sub branch of Semitic, and it is part of the hypothetical or provisional Afroasiatic language family. When I say provisional, I mean that the Afroasiatic language family, as everyone should already know, is only a provisional stance. It is um, a working hypothesis. It is not a apodictic statement. It's not also a family. It's not actually a family. It doesn't have, the branches are not genetically related all to each other. There has been disputes, time depth issues, and also sound correspondent issues within Egyptian actually being related to the Semitic. It's problematic issues there, and also scholars are now, linguists are now saying that in peer reviewed data that we should stop using Semitic alongside to interpret Egyptological terms, because the languages are not related. The Semitic branch and the Egyptian branch are not related to each other, right? So that puts into question the whole Afroasiatic phylum itself, right? So I had to dig into the etymological sense by looking at the Ethio-Semitic branch closely as I look into the sister languages within that branch. So as I look into the sister languages within that branch, we find the whole scope of what Tessalum or Selim actually means. And it can mean a dark colored person. So from those two scholars who seem to do like a assumption, etc. I didn't do assumptions. I used advanced linguistic skills. I looked into the branches of the languages that was used in the original inscription, and then I evaluated the etymological range from all of the sister language, including the language of Gaiz itself, and it is certified that yes, Tessalum can mean skin color. It can mean skin complexion within the etymological sense. It can mean skin color. So that is one part of an argument that I'm using in my research. And again, this goes back to the 4th century. So this is interesting. So as a linguist, also I use Bantu lexical reconstructions. I do not, in no way this is apodictic. This is all reconstructions are hypothetical. These are linguistic reconstructions that we are basing off of living languages today. So it gives us a sense of what happened in a past. So Proto-Bantu is estimated to be either from 3 to 4,000 years ago, right? And from there, uh, linguists can see what happened in the past, or get a glimpse of a window. We can look through this little window and we can find out what happened in the past by examining proto languages, right? So if the proto languages is done according to sound correspondences, and if it's the reconstruction principles and techniques are done accurate and rigorous, we see the rigorous methodological approaches scientifically, this can be a valid hypothetical language reconstruction. So since Bantu lexical reconstructions 3 is highly regarded to Bantu linguists, I decided to let's check the lexica of Bantu people that supposedly or hypothetically existed 3,000 years ago. And shockingly, within the Proto-Bantu lexicon, uh, we find that not only did they have terms to describe themselves as a black people or black complexion, they also had terms to describe other people who are Asians and Indo-Europeans. So hypothetically, these groups of people during this time period was in contact with other groups of people, probably North Africans who are more admixed and probably more lighter in skin color. They describe them as yellow or pinkish or red. So that's very interesting for this research. I did this because in linguistics, reconstruction, um, well, lexical items in per se, is very important. We can know what a civilization, what a village, what a community, uh, it's about by examining the languages. We can know what kind of architecture they was dealing with by examining the languages. We can know what kind of dress and clothing they had by examining languages. We can know the type of foods people are eating by examining languages. We can know the type of economy they had by examining the languages. So we know that in that sense. So to see if there were any type of classifications on skin recognition, uh, um, and as I looked into the language, we can find also that they also uh, did skin color variations. Not skin color variations, but they describe skin color to different population groups in Proto-Bantu 3,000 years ago. This is what the data says, and this is why I'll make this research. So thank y'all for listening. I'll keep y'all updated. This is for my Bachelor of Science in History degree. So if I pass, I will have a Bachelor of Science. I may submit the paper if I do well with the paper, to read this research, my research. And I'm happy to have academic college research. I look at that as I'm taking my information seriously. Um, I'm not joking about it. I want the best for my research, um, and I hope others can look at my research and get what they need as they conduct research as well. So I'll look into the comments to see if there's any questions. No questions. I appreciate everybody. So thank y'all for listening. This is I'm in a happy mood. This is a good thing. I challenge myself. My mission is to get a doctor's degree, to be an adjunct professor. um, I'm coming from a place where I come from. I can't believe I'm even here right now discussing this. So all of my life is just to do research. So I appreciate you guys. Um, you can support the channel, like and subscribe. Thanks.